Do you want more? More time, more balance, more love, more sex, more money, more real, and less bullshit? This is the Women Wanting More podcast with Dr. Karen Osborne. Real life, real stories, plus real tips to get you more of what you want.
So more and more I am hearing this message. I'm hearing it from within me. And, maybe it's that thing that, if you're car shopping and suddenly you see that car everywhere, right? Or you want a certain car and you just start seeing it everywhere. When my husband and I were trying to get pregnant, it was like babies and pregnant women were everywhere, right? Because that was what was in my mind. This was what I was attracting into my world. The concept of there is something to be said in not constantly doing and taking action. That the doing is in the stillness. And so I had seen a post that Danielle Laporte, who, if you don't follow Danielle Laporte, you should, and you should read all of her books because she's brilliant. Danielle Laporte, Desire Map, Firestarter Session, White Hot Truth, brilliance. And she had posted this, it looks like I think it's a rabbi, that is just a short, like a minute video. I think it's about how long you can put on Instagram in the main feed, talking about that Jesus didn't want us to be productive. He wanted us to be fruitful, meaning, again, how I see this is where I'm vibing on this, is that, and I had posted back, and I don't comment on a lot of stuff like that. I don't comment a lot of people that are like public figures, because I don't know. I feel a lot of people do that stuff and they want to be seen in her. But things that move me, yes, things that I think would be of value maybe to somebody else reading it, or just I feel it and I feel compelled to write about it. There's no ego, there's no stuff. It's just like, man, this is so powerful. And I had written this and I'm like, ooh, that's actually something great to podcast about, where I said there's power. Oh, pardon me, there's not power. There is power, but there's doing in the stillness. And I literally had this conversation with my husband this morning. And I'm trying to, in beneath or in between getting, kids out the door and lunches at the door and getting them dressed, and I'm juicing my celery and I'm getting ready for because after I drop off the kids, I go to swim lesson, which I just came back from. And I said to my husband, Ed, and I was journaling about it this morning as well. And I'm like, you know what? I used to be like Energizer Bunny. I would say my only speed is fast. And that I felt like people, even just like people who walk slow, I would just be like, get the fuck out of my way. Like, come on, I'm coming through. Like such a state of ego, right? And thinking that that's where the power is. That's where, that somehow there's that the results that are seen in life are only going to be a result of you actually doing things, right? So, running around and creating things and just doing, taking action nonstop. And I said to Ed, like right now for me, feeling this real pull, this listening from within, this listening from God, from like, you just need to chill right now, Karen. I got you, boo. I got you, boo. You don't need to be constantly doing anymore. But yet it's a tough thing for me, right? And I'm okay with stillness. Like I meditate and, I do all sorts of things where it's like, let me just kind of be still. But yet it's hard for me. And so I gave this analogy to my husband, Ed. So let me know if this makes sense to you, because I want to most likely talk about this at an upcoming event that I'll be speaking at. Actually, my husband Ed's event for his clients and some new people as well, about this notion of there's doing in the stillness. Because particularly in the online world, there is still so much, credence given towards the hustle, right? And listen, you need to get shit done. You need to do certain things like, do what you need to do. Like, I understand that. But I think there's such little emphasis. And if anything, I think it's more like how I used to see it, where it's like, sit, wait for shit, wait for the voice to come or God or like, fuck that. I'm gonna get shit done. I'm gonna make shit happen, girl, right? And I said to Ed, I said, right now for me, it's kind of like this. I feel like, when you see like a sprinter, right? So think of like the Olympics and they're doing, 100 meters, 400 meters, whatever. Doesn't really matter. They're at a track and they're on those blocks, right? They're kind of in that down position. They've got their feet in the blocks. They're getting ready for the gun to go off. Pow! So they like explode out of the gates. I'm like, I feel like that. I feel like I'm in this holding pattern where it's not like I'm just sitting there waiting with my feet in the blocks, metaphorically, of course. But yet I feel like I'm waiting. I'm waiting for me to be able to explode because that is the speed that I've been used to. But what I said is like, that is such a fucking lie. Thinking that that's where the good shit comes. That's where the results are. That's the action. Because take a look at that sprinter. It ain't about what he does in that race. When he gets to the point where he is taking action, it's not just because he's just done sprinting, and just ran around the track. What are some of the things that he or she would have also focused on? Rest, recovery, nutrition, sleep, other things that balance out training, right? That help to build and develop that. The race is just like, it's just the next thing. It's just the next thing. I think back to when I used to do CrossFit. And so you would do on heavy lift days, you might do it where you do like a 3 rep, meaning you would lift that 3 times at a certain percentage of your max 1 lift rep. So let me kind of step back here. Max 1 lift rep would be how much can I lift for that particular movement? So let's say it was a deadlift, which means that you bend over at your waist, legs slightly bent, your hands are on a bar, and you probably have weight on it, and you're going to pull it up, okay? Keeping your back nice and straight. And you're going to pull that weight up. So it's going to come almost like it slides from on the ground. So think of it like, with the bumper plates, right? The weight's on it, a bar, and you're going to have your hands over that bar, and it's going to slide up your shins, and it's going to stop probably like around your knee or above your knee, right? That's where then you're at that full extension at the top. That's a deadlift. So from the ground up, right? So the amount of weight that you could lift one time would be your 1 rep max, meaning you can only lift that weight once. It's that heavy, right? So we would train at 3 rep maxes, or we would do 3 repetitions of 80% of, so let's say if my deadlift, just for the sake of simplicity, let's say my deadlift was 100 pounds, okay? So I would go, 80% of that would be 80 pounds. So I'm going to, for this particular lift, I'm going to lift that 3 times, and we're going to do 3 rounds of that, at that 80%. And you would maybe train at 60% of your 1 max rep and 85% and different numbers of times you're lifting, different number of reps and different number of, all of these things, right? Different sets. Maybe even different ways of how you lift the weight. But the thing is it was all leading up to the, how much I'm training to lift for the 1. And you would only test that once in a while to go, okay, cool. So my 1 rep max, now instead of pulling a 200 pound deadlift, 100 pound, I can now do 120 because I've been training to be able to lift harder, right? When that sprinter is in the blocks, they've been training to be able to run that race fast, to take that massive action. But going back to the gym at CrossFit, we didn't constantly only lift the weight 1 time. See, that would never train us to be able to do it. And we would get burned out, you get really sore, and there's lots of training that needs to happen in between that. So when we take that back to life, right? Back to life. If you're constantly doing the heavy lifting, I'll say that figuratively, metaphorically now, and just all day long, action, I'm lifting weight, doing this. I remember my schedule when I was still in practice and I had a network marketing business and I was coaching. I literally barely even ate some days. I mean, I would eat, but I'm eating in the car and I'm going from the office to an appointment with somebody to talk to them about essential oils, to another one, to a training, to a study, to the back to the office, to home, to kids in bed. I'm up late. It was nonstop. And here's the crazy shit of that. I got a high with that. Are you with me? I got high off of that energy. But really, when it came down to it, this constant movement, number one, you cannot sustain. And number two, there's a lot of ways to look like you're like moving, but not necessarily getting things done. Or perhaps getting a lot of things done, but not getting done the things that fucking matter. So great. So you stayed up all night. Good for you. And you feel like shit the next day. Good for you. You're going to joke about it. People that are online business like hashtag, business over beers because they're working on weekend evenings. Listen, I get it. You love what you do. You want to keep pouring into that. That was me too. And you should love what you do. But you gotta have some fucking balance in there. You have to have some boundaries. And you need to know that there is work getting done when there's not work getting done by your definition. In other words, when you take the time for you to care for you, when you invest in your marriage, when you take that time to say, yes, I will stop and play with you, son, for 10 minutes. You are making yourself better within other areas of your life. It all counters over. And so you might see that as, well, I'm not really doing stuff because I'm not working on my business, or I'm not like working on my health, investing that. Like this last week, I didn't train as much as I normally did with boxing and swimming and spin classes, and I could feel my knee kind of tweaking. I said to my husband, Ed, I'm like, I'm feeling really run down. I think I'm maybe pushing a little bit too hard. I started incorporating spin classes, which are incredibly intense, and my boxing sessions, which are incredibly intense. And I said, I think I'm doing a little bit like pushing myself too much physically. I love to move. It is part of who I am, but there's variances of that, right? Every single morning I get up and I walk my dogs. It's important for me to move, but I'm not like pushing. And so I said that to my husband. Then what happened on Sunday? I kind of tweaked my knee on this right leg that I've injured in the past and have this thing called a Baker's cyst behind that knee. And so, it was like a couple days of like, all right, I need to rest this. Texted my boxing coach. I said, I can't train Monday. I'll see you at our next time, which is on Wednesday this week. The old me would have been like, no, I'm going to go. I'm fine. I'll be fine. But I knew that there was power in stillness, that there was power in resting. There was power that I was doing something actually by listening to my body and not pushing. So I know right now where I'm in this holding pattern in business of like, okay, I'm writing the book, but I'm not putting these hard deadlines because that's not really creatively how it works, at least not for me. I can't just pump out. I'm not like, what's that author that writes all those, John Grisham, like that has like a formula, like a Stephen King, they have a formula for like putting out these books, right? Danielle Steele, they're constantly putting out books and content. It doesn't work that way for me with what I'm writing about. It's something especially when it's so vulnerable and deep and raw, what I'm writing about. And this experience of understanding that there is doing in the stillness, that when I have gaps of a day, a couple days, a week where I haven't written anything for lots of different reasons, or for no reason at all, outside of I needed to get still. I needed to wait for that inspiration, that muse to hit me, to come to me, to know what the words are to say. And that it's not procrastination. And that there is doing in the stillness. So here's your more tip for today then, sister. What is it for you right now that you think that you have to be constantly doing, when really what needs to happen more is you need to be still. You need to really accept and receive the message that there is doing in the stillness. There is, even when you're still, there's something happening in that, right? I mean, listen, how can you explain the power of prayer, which has been shown in scientific studies to have an effect? People praying. Like, you might go, no, you're doing something, but there's stillness. There's not this like constant outside external like movement, motion, loud, There's doing in the stillness, sister. So where is that for you right now that you need to really accept that even though there might be a stillness period, even though you're sitting at the blocks and you've been training and you're waiting and you're listening, that you are doing something by that stillness. So what is that for you? And I think it's just an easy one today. Just accept that. Be okay with that. Give yourself permission to be in that space. That's all you need to do with this today. So finishing up, make sure to go to drkarenosborn.com/action guide so you can get on the Woman Wanting More newsletter, be part of the tribe. I'm going to send you some cool trainings and videos and let you know when that book is coming out, late 2018. So I will talk to you in the next episode, then sister. A life of more is one step away from understanding that you're still doing stuff when you're still. Every single day. I love and appreciate you.
To get the show notes of each Women Wanting More episode, including the How to Get More tip, subscribe to the newsletter at drkarenosborn.com/newsletter.